Texas shouldn't exist, not as a single state. Within its borders, you cross deserts that burn and forests that flood, drive 13 hours and never leave the state, and witness weather collide with violent force. This is a place that feels more like a country stitched from fragments, its scale and contradictions defying logic. But what hidden force twists so many landscapes, climates, and lives together here? And why does Texas keep rewriting its own boundaries? Elena sets out before sunrise, with a full tank and a restless sense of challenge ahead. The dashboard map glows in the dark, tracing a single line from El Paso to Orange, west to east, border to border. The numbers are almost absurd. 801 miles from north to south, 773 miles from east to west. In Texas, a drive can last 13 hours without ever crossing a state line. Distance here is not a casual detail. The land outside the window never settles. Plains stretch into emptiness for hours, then without warning tumble into the sudden rise of hill country escarpments. Forests appear in the east, thick and humid, only to vanish into grasslands and, further west, into desert. The odometer climbs, but the scenery refuses to repeat. Change announces itself relentlessly. 10 ecoregions unfold across the route, each demanding its own rules. Piney woods dripping with rain, the Trans-Pecos dry and silent, Gulf prairies tangled with salt marsh. Each ecosystem holds its own logic, its own weather, its own pace. Elena passes through towns that feel isolated from the rest of the state, each with its own pace and accent, separated by distances that would span entire countries elsewhere. On the high plains, the horizon is a thin line, the sky endless. In East Texas, the road tunnels beneath a canopy of green. The journey is not just long, it is fractured. Stitched together by highways and rivers, each region holding tight to its own identity. By the time the sun sets, the sense of crossing a single state has faded. It feels like passing through a series of disconnected worlds, each claiming its own piece of Texas. Fragmented and oddly complete. Along the invisible line that slices through central Texas, the land itself seems to change its mind. Here, the Balcones Escarpment rises, an ancient fault line running from Del Rio through Austin to Dallas. This is where the air masses of a continent collide. Warm, humid winds surge up from the Gulf of Mexico, climbing the escarpment's ramparts. From the north, cold, dry air descends across the plains. From the west, desert winds sweep in, stripped of moisture by the mountains. Sometimes, even distant Atlantic systems slip in from the east, adding another layer to the mix. Dr. Morales, a meteorologist who has spent decades tracking Texas weather, calls this the state's engine room. She points to the balcony as the place where the rules of the atmosphere break down. When Gulf moisture hits the escarpment, it is forced upward and cools fast. Clouds build in minutes, storms in hours. On Memorial Day 2015, a stalled front and a surge of tropical air met right over the hill country. 12 inches of rain fell in a single night. Rivers like the Blanco rose 40 feet, sweeping away entire blocks of Wimberley. These collisions do not just bring floods. They shape everything. Rainfall, drought, tornadoes, even the line where forests end and grasslands begin. The escarpment acts as a boundary, but also as a fuse. The result is a geography that never settles, a state where the weather can shift from drought to deluge in a matter of days. This is why Texas holds so many worlds inside its borders. The land and the sky are always in negotiation, and the outcome is never certain. In West Texas, the dunes of Monahans stretch across the horizon, their pale ridges shifting with every gust. When the wind is right, the sand itself begins to singing, a low, vibrating hum that rises from the quartz grains tumbling over each other. This rare music echoes across only a handful of places on Earth, yet it happens here, in a landscape more often associated with silence. Northward, the ground falls away into Palo Duro Canyon, a scar in the panhandle stretching 120 miles. Its walls glow red and orange, carved by the prairie dog town fork of the Red River over millions of years. The canyon hides in the flatness until, suddenly, the land splits open, revealing cliffs 800 feet deep. Farther south, a mound of pink granite rises out of the scrub, enchanted rock. At 425 feet tall, it is a billion-year-old dome, exposed by the slow retreat of softer stone. In the west, salt flats gleam white under the sun, remnants of ancient seas that once covered this ground. And in the desert, the Devil's River runs clear as glass over limestone, its turquoise water glowing in the midday light. These are places that seem impossible to find together, stitched into one border by the restless forces beneath Texas soil. Basements are almost unheard of in Texas homes, not because of tradition, but because of the ground itself. Much of the state sits on clay-rich soils that expand and contract with every rainfall and drought. Digging into this earth risks cracked foundations and flooded rooms, so most houses rest on concrete slabs, hugging the surface. The land shapes where people settle, too. In the west, oil towns rise overnight in empty basins, then fade back into silence when the wells run dry. Meanwhile, the east grows dense with towns, each one tucked among forests and rivers, where the soil holds firmer and water is never far away. Population is not spread evenly. Nearly 90% of Texans live in the cities and coastal plains, while the Trans-Pecos holds fewer than one person per square mile. Ranches in the arid west stretch for thousands of acres, their size a direct answer to thin grass and scarce water. Highways cut through these distances at speeds up to 85 miles per hour, built for a place where the horizon is never close, and the next town could be hours away. Night in Texas is not a pause, but a transformation. At Bracken Cave, just outside San Antonio, dusk triggers a spectacle that feels almost supernatural. Clouds of Mexican free-tailed bats spiral out from the limestone mouth, 15 to 20 million in one colony, the largest on Earth. Their emergence darkens the sky for nearly half an hour, a living river that twists over the hill country and disappears into the warm, insect-laden night. In the far west, the world grows even quieter. The Trans-Pecos Desert holds some of the darkest skies on the continent. Here, light pollution is almost non-existent. Big Bend National Park and the Davis Mountains register a bortle one, the lowest possible level. On clear nights, the Milky Way spills from horizon to horizon, bright enough to cast faint shadows across the stone. Far to the east, Caddo Lake breathes out thick fog. Cypress knees rise from black water, shrouded in mist that lingers until sunrise. Even in these silent hours, the land is restless, alive with wings, starlight, and the slow drift of water and air. Galveston's shoreline edges backward, losing as much as 2 meters each year. The land here is sinking too, subsiding nearly 1 centimeter each year, and it is outpacing the rise of the sea. Maps drawn a century ago no longer match the water's reach. Far inland, rivers like the Brazos do not always obey their channels. In rare floods, the river abandons its bed and carves a new path across the plain. These avulsions occur every few centuries, leaving behind oxbows and ghostly scars on the landscape. In West Texas, the desert advances eastward, swallowing grassland at a rate of about 1 kilometer a year. Mesquite and creosote shrubs push into former prairies, driven by drought and shifting rainfall. Dr. Morales traces these changes on satellite images, pointing out how the state's map is never quite finished. The boundaries of water, land, and desert keep moving, redrawn by forces that do not rest. Texas compresses the climates of a continent into one border. 8 distinct Köppen climate classes run from subtropical forests in the east to true desert in the west, each demanding its own way of life. This mosaic shapes more than scenery. It breeds a mindset tuned to difference and distance. The state's economy mirrors this pattern. Energy fields in the Permian Basin, tech corridors in Austin, cattle ranches spread across the plains, ports driving global trade on the Gulf. No single sector dominates, no single climate defines the whole. Dr. Morales puts it simply, Texas is built for self-reliance, because it has to be. In a place where the land never repeats, adaptation becomes tradition, and variety is the only constant. Texas stands as proof that borders can't contain the extremes of nature or identity. Its land keeps shifting, its climate keeps colliding, and its sense of self resists simple answers. In a world growing more uniform, Texas remains defiantly unpredictable. Which part would you dare to explore?